Matt, welcome back. We missed you last week.
Yes, I had some travel and you guys were so nice to fill in for me. Mike was great to do that, but I'm happy to be back on podcast day. And here we are.
Podcast day, best day of the week. I'm glad to have you back and back in our rhythm, but I'm really excited for what's to come on this conversation. This week, we get to talk to Scott Leonard. Scott started in the financial services industry right out of college, working for a major brokerage firm and an insurance company. During that time, he earned his certified financial planner certification. Unhappy with the focus on selling products, he transitioned to working with large money management firm that was one of the first companies to help bring passive index investment strategies to the public, working with independent financial advisors. He was the national education manager for the company, teaching the investment concepts that he learned while obtaining his economics degree at UCLA. During this period, he
Go
learned
Bruins.
about the Yeah. During this period, he learned about the independent fee only side of the industry, and it was clear to him that that was the right way to deliver financial advice. As a certified financial planner professional, Scott believed that a client's goals should be the sole objective. So he set out to provide more personalized financial services. So in 1996, he started his own firm with the purpose of delivering comprehensive financial advice free of the conflicts found within the banks, brokerage, and insurance companies. So let's welcome Scott Leonard, founding partner of Navigoe. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Hi, thank you very much for that introduction. Wow, I mean, that's over 30 years ago. It's hard to believe we're still sitting here. Yeah.
But the 30 years well spent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Scott, we like to make you feel comfortable bringing you into the Advisor's Guide for Estate Planning podcast. So I like to start with an icebreaker question. You have a nautical theme throughout your entire practice. So I wanted to bring up a nautical question.
All
Thought that
right.
might be comfortable, right? So in 2 days, we have the anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic. So do you feel that Jack could have also fit on the door with Rose at the end of the movie?
Well, if you wanted her to, for sure, or if she wanted him to, for sure. Yeah. I'm sure there's a
Yeah,
backstory that didn't quite make the camera that tells us maybe why they didn't share the door.
I think they could
She,
have done it. I
Yeah.
personally, I think they could have floated together, but it just didn't make quite the dramatic ending. And so maybe
I
that's what it
saw
was.
I saw a recent interview somewhere on social media with James Cameron where he said himself, "Yep, he could have fit," which really struck me in my millennial soul. Well, we're so
That's
excited to
hilarious.
have you. Yeah.
So fun questions to start. So thanks for giving us some of you. You've been on the water a lot, and so at some point maybe we can learn more about that. That was fascinating to read in your bio as well. But let's start on estate planning. That's what we're kind of here to talk about, and that's what here those listening are interested in hearing. You've been providing estate planning with the Encore team for a number of years now, and helping clients get their new estate plans in place, updating their existing estate planning. Tell me, if we rewind back to your earliest days here, what was it about having an estate planning solution that you could help your clients facilitate this process that was attractive to you, and kind of how you began to orient your clients that, hey, this is something I can help you with, even though I'm not a practicing attorney. This is what advisors kind of often wonder.
Yeah. And I think the intro kind of leads to the history of that a little bit. Before I even started my firm, and why I came up with this idea, I don't even know. I didn't realize it was kind of evolutionary at the time, is I wanted to create a firm that had all the major professions in one place. An attorney, an accountant for really good tax work, an investment person, financial planning, all in one firm that really delivered everything. Really, today we would call it a family office. Certainly at the time, I didn't even know what that was. This is back in the 80s when I kind of was thinking about this. And so it's always something I've always wanted to do. The biggest hindrance to that is, in order for, in California at least, in order to offer law, the firm has to be 100% owned by an attorney. And my 20-year-old ego didn't want to be owned by an attorney. I wanted my own company. So I think that's kind of, that's the way back history of I've always
Sure.
wanted to offer this as a very comprehensive service. So before we found Encore and started working with Encore, we would go to the meetings with our clients. We provided a graphical summary of how their estate would dive down to their kids. And we even did it with the dollars in it, right? And so, which is a great thing, to show, hey, here's how much, look at how much money they're going to inherit or not inherit, depending on how they're, giving monies down the road. So it's always been a major thing that we've wanted to provide. We live in, here in Southern California along the coast. Estate planning services are extremely expensive. And, and also I came to the experience to some extent that the attorneys are focused on what they're focused on, nothing against them at all. That might not be fully in line with what we understand the clients really want. One of the reasons why we want to be in those initial meetings with our clients, with the attorneys. And so when Encore came along and we had an opportunity to really deliver a package that's compatible with, I would say 60 to 80% of our clients, where they don't need that super high end $10,000 customization, we can give them an excellent solution. That, and then the last little piece to answer this question that really turned us onto it was the ability to take the unified credit, right, and bring it over to the surviving spouse with portability there on that. And we had all these people with these AB trusts. And it was hard to suggest that someone spends $5,000 to get their AB trust removed, the AB part of that removed, for something that was still kind of abstract to a lot of these clients. And then they had to go back to the attorney, and it's 6 months to get the documents. It's a process. And for us to be able to help them solve that answer right away, really quick, it's been phenomenal for our clients. It's been a phenomenal ability for us to add that service to our clients too.
Scott, earlier before we were on camera, and you touched on it a little bit during this answer, you mentioned the procrastination process. Would you speak more to that?
Yeah, I think, everyone's busy. And I think the process of saying, hey, we got to find an attorney, or we'll recommend attorneys, right? We got to go, we got to schedule the appointment. The appointment's 2 months out. Then it's, just that whole thing was just so long. And like I shared with you, there was fairly recently, actually, we're sitting with a client who hadn't done a trust, and they wanted to do it, and they were talking about it. And I go, you have an extra 20 minutes? We could do it right now in 20 minutes. We always have a big screen in our conference room, pull it up, and we literally go through the questionnaire live with them in 20 minutes. Their situation was simple enough that we knew they weren't going to hum and haw about who's trustees and, contingent trustees and all that. We knew they knew those answers. And we were just able to crank it out. They were back in the office 5 days later, notarizing the documents. One of my staff is a notary, and it's just done. And it's great. It solves something for them that they were just always procrastinating. It's simple, it's easy, it's quick. And like I said, for 60 to 80% of our clients, and we deal with a very high net worth set of clients, it's perfect for what they're trying to accomplish today. And it's great.
What was the client experience in that case? I have a sense for, wait, 20 minutes, we just got this thing I had been thinking, so I've been overwhelmed by for years. What's that client moment when they go, that's it?
Yeah, it's fun. There was no, I guess, direct, honestly, no direct comment to that. But these are just, this is, in a way, this is just kind of what we do, right? In the office, and just execute things as best as we can. We're at the point where we do a lot of tax planning too for clients, and we're probably finding 10 to 20% of the tax returns are done wrong each year. And we're immediately with them in our office on the phone with the accountant saying, here's what you missed. Let's make this correction, get it done. As opposed to saying, go talk to your accountant on your own. So I think they're used to that kind of, let's just get it done right now while you're in the office with us. Our niche is really local. And having people come to our office. We've renovated a historic home, which is our office here in the beach cities. We did it about almost 20 years ago now. It's iconic to our neighborhood, to where we live. And so everyone's here. And so when they're in our office, we just get stuff done. And the clients knowing that makes it even more, they're more willing to come into the office, because they know it's not just, hey, how are the kids doing, right? We actually accomplish things. And that's a great thing about Encore is it's not about, let's get you the referral, let's do this, let's do that. we just get, no, let's just get it done, and we get it
Mm.
done. And that's the
Mm.
phenomenal piece about all of it. And also, and works great over Zoom too. I mean, that's the,
Yeah.
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 It's the joy of it, joy of modern technology. Now, you are explaining a really holistic approach. How are you charging for it?
Yeah. So for us, because that the holistic is part of what we do, this is everything that we do. We have the clients directly pay Encore for the trust documents. And that's, to us, that just makes sense because we were already going to the accountant's offices
Mhm.
anyways, or the attorney's offices, sorry, as really part of our offering. And so it's actually saved us time to be able to use
Mm.
Encore than the time it would take us to be involved with the clients. I'm afraid to send our clients to go talk to the attorneys by themselves because
Mm,
attorneys don't have the luxury to spend the time with clients like we do. I think it's when you think about the other professions, the accountants, the attorneys, and us as financial professionals, because of the investments and because of the constantness of that, we get the luxury. And also, it's not an hourly fee for most of us, right? It is some type of
Mhm.
retainer or AUM fee. We get the luxury of talking with the clients more often, more frequently, and really understanding their situation. And so we understand the nuances of what they really want, where many times, the attorneys are like, here's our formula and here's how we're going to want to kind of do it. And one of the classics I see is I'm a big fan of, especially with young kids, not having age-based distributions, right? I know that's a standard. It's an option with Encore, but there's also an option for it not to be one, right?
Mhm.
And I'm big on asset protection, all that stuff. But to explain that concept to a client about an irrevocable trust for kids forever, which it really doesn't have to be, right? A lot of attorneys just don't want to go down that path. That's a long conversation, takes a lot of
Mhm.
understanding, and they're necessary. And so I just find that a lot of them are just doing the same old stuff, right? They've got their formula, they got their recipe, and they're just trying to do that recipe. And what's great is, as formulaic as Encore is, which makes it easy for us as advisors to take our clients through it, it allows for you found that sweet spot of enough customization to do what we need to do. And then also one last piece on this is we'll put stuff in the notes. We'll send emails, to
Mhm.
support and say, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish. What do we need to do here? And the support's been phenomenal also, right? So we're not just left on our own to do things. Sometimes it's like, what should be the title of the trust based on the prior trust? And we're just, let us see the document. Here goes. Here's what you need to do, right? So there's a lot of help through it too. So we're just not like left on our own, and you're just giving us documents. There's a lot of support around that too, for when we need it. So it's just been phenomenal. The experience it's been great for our clients.
Yeah. What would you say that? What's kind of been the net effect across your business within that, with clients being able to implement this kind of a service? What are you
Yeah,
seeing now as a result a few years in?
I'm going to say it's peace of mind. And our
mm,
tagline is where prosperity finds peace of mind.
Mm.
And that came from surveying. We had some professionally survey our clients a long time ago. Why do you work with Navigoe? And that wasn't, they didn't necessarily use those words, although that was used a lot, but that kind of became the ongoing theme. And that's why we came up with our tagline. And this just improves upon that. People with wealth have at least heard, they kind of understand, they know, and people with kids, they know that they should do this, but they procrastinate and they just don't.
Mhm.
And for us to be able to just drive that process for them so quickly and so easily, and they're great touches, right? So when when the clients come back into the office to do the notary, I don't have to be there for the notary, but I am, right? Because it's a process. And
Mhm.
so that's a great time. We just chit chat while they're going through and signing all the documents. It's another touch. And we know
Mhm.
that it's those quality touches that create the longevity of a relationship with these clients, that are so important. And it's giving us a great opportunity to give them another phenomenal touch, to just continue to help them along the way. But that peace of mind is great. And I truly want what's best for them. I want them to have a living trust. We've seen the problems of not having them in place. I never want to go through that with another client. We've also had to undo AB trust stuff, right? So someone dies, the AB trust is still there. Now we've got the two trusts. We're splitting the house, two tax returns with the widow. She was never really involved with the finances anyways, right? Not always the case, but in this case it was. And that becomes difficult sometimes for people. And unwinding that AB trust is expensive. You got to get the kids to sign off. In this case, all the kids were fine with it, and we were able to remove that process. But it's certainly a lot more than doing than correcting the trust to begin with, restating that trust. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott, are you willing to share I like to say a near miss story, one trust where you could have seen it really going awry, but you were able to use the software to get people in check and correct their path?
If I think the one's really going to be correcting all the AB trusts. It's one thing when you've got a family with some new kids, and you could say to them, hey, now that you've got kids, let's do this trust. We can put guardians in place. You've got some pretty hefty life insurance. We want to make sure the assets are correctly protected for them and all that. That's an easy move, even when it's going to an external attorney to take care of that. But when you're dealing with the people that are retired, they've got an AB trust set up. They don't see the need for the kids anymore. And it's just kind of like you're trying to tell them this abstract concept. So I think that for us, it's probably been the biggest one is restating the AB trust to get out of that process. Because like I said, we did have one that was a big problem. Once I saw that, I'm going, all right. And we read everybody's trust when they come on with us. We have a trust reviewed. Now you guys review a lot of trusts for us. That's a great, we haven't really touched on that at all. That's a great outsource opportunity for us too. When we onboard a new client, instead of us having to go through it to send that off to you, let you review it. It saves us a lot of time. And of going through those things, which is phenomenal. But we see those AB trusts, and it's like, let's correct those right away. And the ability to do that in a very painless way for our clients, I think is really addresses that for the most part, because dying with an AB trust in today's environment with an under $20 million estate is just, it's creating problems that are not necessary, right? Unless we're dealing with second marriages with stepkids and all that, at which point I don't think that's an Encore product anyways. I think that's a very customized solution that you're going to go spend $10,000 with an attorney to get solved.
Yeah, we do them for some of those occasions, but when there's two sets of kids on both sides, definitely those are ones that when in doubt, we don't hesitate to say refer it out. But yeah, let's talk more about that review, because both reviewing, so that's kind of a lot of what it sounds like you've done. You were already, prior to Encore, you were already really engaged in their existing estate plan review. So tell us how that has been helpful, at least to upload it to us to maybe do that initial pulling all the decisions out of that existing document. But then also, now that you've done more estate plans with your clients, revisiting the Encore plans with them and the ability to easily make changes going forward. How do you kind of see those two things as a benefit to the practice overall versus the traditional experience?
Yeah, the reviews great. When I first started working with Encore, we were still doing a kind of an initial, what we called a wealth audit with prospects, and we were charging them a minimum fee, a fee to basically come in and allowing people to kick our tires. Right? Here's what we do. Here's everything, and part of that deliverable was delivering them a review of their current trust documents. So being able to have Encore do that, it just saves us time, right? The cost of that review is fully covered in what we were charging for just that kind of initial tire kick service anyways. And it took a lot of pressure off of us, a lot of time. We're fairly busy day to day with clients. And so prospecting takes a lot of time, right? When we were doing multiple meetings and doing everything we were doing at that point. So for that, it was phenomenal. It's a good little write-up. It's a good summary. It's done very professionally. And it just makes it just really added to our deliverable. Now that we've walked away from that tire kicking initial process, we're still having the review done by Encore, but we're doing it after they become a client now. But within the first month or two of them becoming a client, we're paying to have that trust reviewed. And here's the summary. But at that point, it's as much about, hey, we need to solve this problem and go on and get it corrected, or hey, everything's fine. But now we also know who the trustees are, who the beneficiaries are. One of the things that's part of Navigoe's ongoing service is we have all that in a way that we review with the client every year. So once a year, in one of our meetings, we have 2 annual meetings, or basically 2 semi-annual meetings with clients. And in one of those meetings, as part of our structure, we're going through, are all these still the right people? Are all these people still alive? Right? And probably the biggest one that comes up is like, I'm not sure that mom is now the right person to be the guardian. With things. In fact, that reminds me of another great thing we did the end of last year. We had a 17 and 15-year-old kids, and mom lived across the country, and mom was still guardian, right? So this is on the will side of things. Gotcha. And I'm like, do you have really good friends locally? And the conversation went down to, why don't we see if the local friends will be guardian for the last 2 years of their life, till they're 18, right? To let them finish out high school. It's going to be bad enough you lose both your parents, but then to have to move away from all of your friends. And so that ability to be able to stay, and with their friends, and they had the conversation, it all worked out, and then boom, we get the documents and we're done. To kind of update that through that process. And again, that's just a great solution that not only do we know that we can recommend it, but we can also help execute it, which is I think really closing the circle in how we give phenomenal service to our clients.
Yeah, because what was the alternative prior to you working with Encore, and you've helped them rethink about who they have named for that role? What were you going to do? What did you do in the old days? Now we schedule 6 months out for
who did the current trust? Are they still around? Do we find it? Because listen, attorneys do not want to restate, or they'll not restate, but usually if it's not the same attorney, they just can't do a simple amendment, right? They want to redo everything. And so it's a whole other process. If you can't get in with that same attorney, many times, these are 15-year-old documents. And so they got to go, they would have had to go through that entire process. My guess is they probably would have never done it. And listen, the likelihood that both of these parents died is so slim. And there was just probably another reason why they would have never done it. They're like, you know what, it's not going to happen. And, mom could always let the kids stay with these people anyways, which is true. And so, maybe let's just not get it. Let's not move forward with it. But because of the simplicity, and listen, the cost is it's insignificant. Our clients go spend more than that on a night out at a concert, right? And so for them, it's about helping them get something done and executed quickly. It's that service, and closing the loop with everything that is so valuable to them.
Ariel, I think we need to raise our prices, is what I heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Scott. It was,
we're not charging enough. Insignificant.
He gave us the idea.
I at least want to be. It's okay.
Well, I'm grandfathered in because of this podcast, right?
He said insignificant. That means we're definitely not charging enough. And so it's reasonable. Maybe we need to get to where Scott says reasonable instead of.
Listen, it is reasonable. It is very reasonable for them, and because it's reasonable. It just isn't an issue, I guess, is really the way to think about it. Yeah.
Scott, you've mentioned a lot about service, and so what other services? Estate planning is clearly one, but I also want to ask, what other services are just essential that you feel that advisors are not currently offering?
I don't think people are doing enough tax advice with things. And there's been some tools, again, within the recent last 5 years that have come along that have really allowed us to personally improve upon our delivery of tax services. When I say we have 2 meetings a year with clients, one of those meetings is basically just taxes. I would think that over 50% of the conversations we have with our clients is about taxes, and helping to minimize and plan around taxes, and all of that. And that's another phenomenal service. I couldn't imagine in today's day and age being a really comprehensive, really holistic advisor and not looking at everyone's tax returns every single year. And we used to ask for them at the end of the year for our end of year tax planning meeting. Now we're collecting them, we're in that stage right now. When you're done, give us your tax returns now. Because we do a lot of advanced tax planning. We provide a tax letter to our clients and their accountants every year, but the accountants still miss it because there's just some things that aren't standard in the tax returns. That they've got to, deal with special little things. And they just, they're taking last year's return, putting it on this year's return and saying, is there anything different? Right. And I'm sure anyone on this call has probably had clients that create an LLC for a piece of real estate and don't tell the accountant. And 3 years later, they've never filed a tax return for the LLC because they didn't tell the accountant and they aren't thinking about it. Right. Sometimes. So, I think the tax service is huge. And there's a difference between tax prep and, let's say, filing taxes. And not to pick on the accountants at all. I was raised by a CPA, and my son graduates college this year, and he's going to go get his, going for one of the big three to get his CPA. So I'm not against any of that at all. But what is a CPA? But their history is all audit, right? It's about making sure that what happened last year or 2 years ago is correct to the penny, right? But what is planning? Planning is really the process of looking out over multiple years and projecting what's going to happen. And so instead of trying to minimize taxes this year, we want to minimize taxes over everyone's lifetime and even as the money gets inherited by the kids. And that process is very uncomfortable for a lot of accountants because they're like, well, we don't know what tax rates are going to be in 20 years. I go, yeah, we don't. We also don't know what the market's going to return next year either. We as financial planners are super comfortable in living in that uncertainty where I think a lot of accountants aren't. And so I think we're actually better positioned to help them do the planning, multiple year planning than the accountants are, as well as they're compensated differently, right? They're compensated to do a tax return. They're not really compensated to spend the time to do the planning. I think that's why we have such a luxury, again, where we sit in the whole service ecosystem of financial advice as kind of really leading from the investment side to be able to spend the time to deliver all these other services to people.
I love what you said there in that, because I think we're in the same place. We value attorneys and the things that they deliver, that they're really good at delivering. And that's really, especially in the ultra high net worth space, the estate tax planning space. And so same with CPAs, but some of their business models and their focuses, the way they're oriented, the need for the advisor to step into tax and estate is so much more holistic and ultimately valuable for the client that you get an advisor's mindset speaking into that. And that's why we committed day one to saying we are advisor first and only solution, because stepping into the skill set that the advisors bring to those conversations. And then secondly, you talked about the tax side. Who do you use as a software for that? Because
we use Holistiplan.
Yeah, that was my guess. And
I'm
God
gonna
bless
shut this window back here for a second.
Yeah.
So I hear a leaf blower starting behind me. So.
Oh, there you go.
Holistiplan's been a game changer for us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They're phenomenal in what they do. And it's even at the point where we have clients that don't want to come in necessarily for a meeting. There's some people where, they're W-2 employees. There's not a whole lot of tax planning you can really do for them. But we still say, hey, send us your tax return. And then we'll put it in a Holistiplan and then send them the report back and just say, hey, yeah, we reviewed your taxes. And nothing really comes up for this. Everything seems to be fine. That touch point is very easy for us. The amount of time necessary to do that is minutes of our actual time. But what a powerful deliverable to tell somebody because listen, no one understands taxes. It's really complicated. It's a black box. It seems like you give papers here, you come out here, you write checks there, right? You hope it's correct. But by coming with that second set of eyes in a way, again, it's peace of mind. Even when you aren't making changes to their portfolio or to their taxes or suggesting anything, the peace of mind is huge for them.
Totally.
And like, someone's looked at this, thank you. And again, it's a quality touch. Ariel, you talked about my history when I was with one of the big TAMPs before we even called TAMPs way back in the day. And we would do rebalancing, right? So we did it quarterly, off quarters, and we look at rebalancing, and we would send a report out whether we rebalanced or not. And the thought of that was, it's like, hey, if we do work for you, we should get the credit of doing that work. So it's like, we looked at your portfolio. It doesn't need to be rebalanced. Here's the report. Boom. And it's just another quality touch that we get to do. And the tax is the same thing, as is, by the way, reviewing the estate, the trust work. Right. It's kind of like you say, hey, here's the review of the trust. By the way, it's great. It's awesome. We don't need to make any changes right now. But the fact that it's done and it's been written, right? The other thing is there's a written analysis there. It's not just us saying, oh yeah, I looked at your trust, everything's cool. You can show them something, provide them something, provide them a little graph of how it's going to happen, right? You know what's going to happen with everything. They're like, oh, they did look at it. They did spend some time on this, and that deliverable, which we pay for the reviews ourselves, is worth every penny. Once we don't have to do it, and the quality of that review, and again, that quality touch, and also more than all that, this almost sounds super salesy, and I don't mean it that way. We are truly doing what we promised the client we're going to do. We are having expert review this trust and give us a second opinion on how things are going to be done. So we're actually truly delivering that holistic promise that we had put in place, which I couldn't really do. I mean, 20 years ago, it was me reading these trusts.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I love that because I'm a huge Holista fan as well. And quite honestly, we modeled a lot of how we have come to market at Encore after Holista Plan. And so I want to be the Holista Plan of estate planning. They're ahead of us, with an advisor count at this point and when they launched. And so, but modeling kind of how we go to market they've been a huge model for us and admire what they do. So this has been awesome. Thank you for sharing, all your insights here. We have one final question I think is interested. I'm always fascinated to hear from all advisors on this. What do you think is the most important coming change in the next 5 to 10 years in financial services? And how are you thinking about that in context of your firm?
So obviously we all know what's going on with technology, and AI, and even before that, just are we going to be replaced as advisors and everything else? There's that trend that's happening. And there's also been this consolidation trend that's happening, right? Where everyone's just kind of getting rolled up into bigger companies. And I think about that a lot. I'm boutique by design. I'm intentionally not getting bigger, or being acquired or wanting to merge or anything like that. And so this is where I think that the trend's going. First, on the technology side, my oldest is 23 in his real first big major job out of college, making good money. He's does research on the internet, all this other stuff, wants to do all that. Me as his dad doesn't know anything. I'm old school, right? Like, what do I know about stuff? And he's coming back to me on simple things. Should he do the Roth 401k or regular 401k? And what I'm bringing this up is that there is so much information out there. It's like, how do you know what's the right information and the wrong information? So it's kind of like technology and AI and all that has done us a favor, because it's just giving everybody way too many answers. And then I think because of the fake news mantra and all other stuff that's going on, a lot of people don't trust what they're reading anyways, right? And they're just not sure what's the vested interest in this and how all that's going. So I think that piece, and then back to the big roll-up firms and everything else, is I've been doing this for 35 years, and I still sit down and talk to clients. And being able to have that direct relationship with the clients is what I love. I mean, that's the part of the business I really enjoy anyways. But having that expertise, with all those years and all the clients through all the different stages of their lives, and knowing we don't necessarily have all the answers, but we know what's wrong. We know it doesn't smell right. We know where to get the right answers for our clients. So I think the future of the business is one, technology is going to make us more efficient. It's going to deal with a lot of our back office things that we need to deal with. It's probably going to help us not have to increase our support staff as the size of our businesses increase. And so I think, you know, whatever their metric is say you need a support staff for every 50 clients, let's make up that as the number. I think going forward now, you could do 100 clients with one support staff with all the technologies. The technology is going to help us. And as well as being the small firms, the small independent firms, we can leverage that technology in our businesses so much faster than the big firms can, especially the big banks. They've got a lot of their proprietary software. They got a lot of money involved with it. They got all these people trained on it. You know, you've got 200,000 brokers across the country. It's really hard just to switch a piece of software, right? Implement, you know, holistic plan into that software. It's gonna be difficult for them to do. So I think being small, direct with our clients, and then technology, one, we're gonna get to leverage technology better than everybody else. And it's gonna make us more efficient at giving that great quality service and advice to our clients. I don't think we're going anywhere. I think we are embedded into this. I think this is going to stay around for a while. I always think about that, right? With my boys that are coming up, and one of them wants to come into the business, and it's like,
oh, cool.
Is that smart? or right? Or are we done? Or is technology taking over? Right? Is everyone just going to go buy an ETF portfolio and let it rebalance on its own and be done with it? Right? Well, no. I mean, do I do a Roth or not? Right? It's that stuff. It's everything we've talked about here, and being able to, I think, deliver great tax advice and a great estate plan advice, and having the solutions around that. It's technology that's allowed us to really up our game for our clients. And I think I'm just excited. It's only going to get better. And so I don't know if I answered that question. I kind of
absolutely.
apologize.
You're bullish on the trusted advisor and what you can do, and how the breadth that you can serve in a better way. So love it.
100%.
Love it. I think I agree. I see those things too.
Scott, some really great thoughts and wisdom. We really appreciate your time today. But that concludes this week's Advisor's Guide to Estate Planning podcast. Thank you for joining in. Talk to you all next week.